Ready, aim, fire.
Welcome to Live with Sensei. I'm your host, Jay Haynes, for the Film Sensei YouTube channel. In this 13th episode of Season 2, I'm delighted to be hosting our roundtable discussion all about Star Wars. The first thing I would like to do is introduce my guest panelists. So, starting with directly to my right on the screen, we have Neil. Neil is my son, and he is almost 15 years old, and I don't know if you can tell, but he is somewhat of a Star Wars fan. Welcome, Neil.
Hi, it's great to be on. Like Dad said, I'm Jay's son. I don't know a lot about hit film, but I do know a lot about Star Wars. So
Yep.
I'm really excited to be on.
It is a pleasure. Next to Neil, we have all the way from Australia. This is Chris, Solo Samurai, also runs channel What Chef.
Hi Jay, thanks for having me. Great to be here. And yeah, likewise, big Star Wars fan. Reason I got into filmmaking. So yeah, this should be a good discussion.
Oh, it's going to be a blast. It is early in the morning where you're at, so I appreciate you.
6:30. Yeah.
6:30 in the morning, which I didn't realize that there are time zones in the world that are on the half-hour schedule until we set this up, and I realized he's at 6:30. And we're at the top of the hour where we're at. So I had no idea. That's something new for me.
Yep.
Directly below me, I have my good friend Mike Miller in a whole other country as well, California.
I think I'm starting to become the Charles Nelson Riley of this show. Yeah, got that. Chris, I just noticed you got a What Chef hat on. That's cool.
Yeah, good pickup.
Yeah, Star Wars chat. So got my hoodie.
Oh, got the Star Trek hoodie.
I've got some props with me.
Oh, perfect. Well, I don't know. You got to look,
and of course cereal.
You got to look a little bit closer at Neil's room.
I got a Star Trek Easter egg in here.
He has a Star Trek Easter egg in there. Can you see it?
Not yet, but I do dig the Donkey Kong poster.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll keep looking for it.
On poster.
Yep, he has a Star Trek item in the mix there. In the mix.
Triple above on top of
Well, I had to bring my prop too for the occasion.
Got it.
So.
Right
Nathan
there.
has nailed it. It is a tribble on the armoire back there.
I do have a tribble there.
Good job, Nathan. Very impressive. And speaking of Nathan, we want to introduce Nathan, who is from the UK.
Yes, I am. Thank you for having me on this show. It will be interesting. I love Star Wars. Always have. Probably one of the first films that I watched that I still love now.
Oh, yeah.
So looking forward to talking about it.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for being here. I do want to give a few shout outs. So please leave a comment in the chat room so that I can recognize who is in the house today. And so if you have a comment, drop it in there. And if you have any questions, go ahead and ask away. If you have any comments about Star Wars, as we're talking, feel free to comment, and I will throw it up on the screen also so that you can be a part of the conversation as well. Next week, I want to try something a little bit different. And I'm not sure if it will actually happen, but I'm willing to give it a try. I would like to take 2 or 3 brave volunteers who would like to come on the show and do a live project challenge. This will be something, it's not going to be anything that's hard, but it might require a little creative thinking. My idea is to issue a challenge live to accomplish something, and it will be in the free version of the Hit Film Express with no add-ons, and then watch and monitor as the participants or the volunteers work through the process of accomplishing the task of creating the project file. If you're willing to put yourself out there, I would love for you to be a brave volunteer. So please let me know. I don't even know.
This is my face.
This could be fun. It sounds like it would be a ball. I know I would want to do it, right? What would really be cool, I think, is if we could do this kind of on a regular thing, maybe pit a hit film user versus a representative from FX Home, right, against each other to see who can create this project file in the most efficient way. Maybe somebody from America versus somebody from Europe or somewhere else. Maybe a young person versus an older person. I think there's a lot of ways that we could do it. Also, I would like maybe a guest host to come in and issue the challenge, and just between some other people, right? Or maybe challenge each other or something like that. So that's my idea for next week. If anybody's interested in playing with this, I'm willing to be flexible about how it works. So please, let me know if you'd be interested in something like that. All right, so let's give a few shout outs here. We'll see. Looks like Gracino TV is in the house. Can't wait for this stream. Currently making a Star Wars short film. I'm hoping to get some tips here. Oh, very cool. We're going to talk about fan films. Dafter Things is in the house. Star Wars has grown quite divisive over the years. Yes, it has. Or maybe it hasn't. Yes, actually, I think it probably has. Gracino asks a question. I'll come back to that. And good morning to you, Hit Film University. I don't know who that guy is. Bill is in the house. Won't say it, but yes, Star Wars is very nice. Bill is a known Star Trek fan, and great to have you, sir. Then this is the question. Cereal of choice today, Mike?
It's a combination of Golden Grams and Cocoa Puffs, but we're running low on milk, so my milk ratio's off.
Oh, yeah. That's bad when you have to eat cereal with the wrong milk ratio. That's for sure. And Terry is here. I'm here, but no guarantees for how long. I appreciate you volunteering to be on the show
Terry.
originally. Terry had a family thing come up, and he has to watch his grandkids, which is a wonderful thing. And I think that, the family always comes first. That's my policy. So
Terry's going to have a good afternoon.
Yeah, it'll be great. It'll be awesome. And Jag Mods is also in the house. Great to have you too, sir. So the first thing I want to ask is, how did you originally discover Star Wars? I'll start with Neil.
Well, as you probably could have guessed, my dad here is a big Star Wars fan. So ever since I was little, I've been watching Star Wars. And when I was young, I believe it was Phantom Menace, I watched very first, and I absolutely loved it. I would reenact all the lightsaber battles, just 2-year-old me with a toy lightsaber while watching the movie, and it was just a blast. And the first movie I ever watched in the theater was the Clone Wars animated film, not the actual movie itself, but the animated one.
Yep, Neil was hysterical because he was only like maybe 3, and we took him, very first movie ever watched was the animated, and he was riveted to this movie, sat in his chair and didn't move for the entire movie. And I'm like, man, he's great. He's going to be awesome in theaters, because a lot of times you bring a little kid to the theater and they wreak havoc everywhere. And then so the very next week, Wall-E came out, and we brought him to see Wall-E, and he was like, and he was running up and down the aisles, and he could care less about Wall-E. I know, it's crazy, right? And it was like, okay, maybe he's not as good as I thought he was going to be. So, Chris, what is your introduction to Star Wars?
Well, that's kind of a tough one. Trying to remember, I don't know how I got into A New Hope, but I have a perfect recollection of seeing Empire Strikes Back. My dad bringing it from a video store, and I was really excited. And he was like, look what's on TV tonight. So that's kind of the first memory. So obviously at that point, I was really young. But at that point, I obviously was a big Star Wars fan anyway, but I can't remember seeing New Hope. And I guess it really grew with me watching the making of Empire Strikes Back. That was hosted by Mark Hamill. I can't remember the amount of times I watched that because the local video store, you could hire it. So I reckon I was hiring that almost every week. I was just obsessed with the behind the scenes of it.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. It was aired on TV here in the United States, and it was just, I was fascinated with how all of they pushed it to the very edge of technology, and they did everything right. I mean, it still holds up today,
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. All right, Mike, how did you first see Star Wars?
Well, you and I, Jay, we are, we'll just say that we are of that age that got to see every Star Wars movie in the theaters from day one. So suddenly my camera went all blurry. So, New Hope, I would have been taken by, I was 5 when that one came out. So, no, I would have been 4 when that came out. So, obviously my
young.
parents... So obviously my parents took me to New Hope, and I mean I don't really remember seeing the movie, if that makes sense, but I know it blew me away because I remember that following Christmas, waking up and it was a ridiculous amount of Star Wars toys, and we lived in Miami at that point, and I didn't remember to grab these last night. Somewhere we had a pool in the backyard, and my dad hired a painter, and everything in the pool was painted in Star Now So like the painter did this beautiful X-wing shooting at a TIE fighter, and
cool.
And then you've got my own little scrawls in there. Now 5-year-old me, little circle TIE fighter, because I'm 5 and that's as good as I can be with a paintbrush. And then Empire, I remember seeing twice in theaters because, that Empire just ran forever. We saw that in May, and then we saw that in December. So imagine seeing a movie in theaters still in first run 6 months apart. You just don't get that anymore. Mm-hmm. And then I'll tell the Jedi story too. Return of the Jedi, which, of course, at the time it was the end of the trilogy. It was the big one. We knew he wasn't going to make the next ones for a while. And I went to that one with a couple of friends, and this is a good story. So we get up to the box office and we order 3 tickets for Return of the Jedi, and she says okay, and reaches up and clicks on the sold out sign. So my buddies and I got the last 3 tickets for that showing. Yeah. So now we're standing in line thinking, there's no way we're going to get to sit together because we're going to be the last 3 people in the theater. And there were 3 seats together in the front row, the neck breaker seats, not necessarily, but just the fact that it was front row, center, and together, we took it. And yeah, but I mean, and then I saw 1, 2, 3 in theaters, then I saw 7 and 8 in theaters, and I never saw the Clone Wars animated, and I haven't seen episode 9.
Right. Not yet. Nathan, how did you first be introduced to Star Wars?
Well, my parents love Star Wars, and I was kind of brought up watching it. So I just watched it and then immediately thought, oh wow, that's so cool! Like lightsaber fights, spaceships flying around everywhere, blowing each other up, and I just really liked it. Then I watched 4, 5, 6 first. Then I went back and watched 1, 2. Then I watched the Clone Wars. Then I watched 3, and then I watched 7, 8, and 9 when they all came out and went to the cinema first weekend of them being out.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yep. Well, I was introduced to Star Wars. I was 9 when the first one came out, and I went to the theater and saw it. It was, it was nothing had ever been like that before, and it was one of those experiences where it's really hard to explain to anybody who didn't go through it what it was really like, because, literally lines would wrap around whole buildings, and go down the street, and this is before people would camp out, so you just had to wait in line. And then and of course I owned all the toys and everything, and then when Empire came out, my parents actually built our entire vacation around the opening of Empire Strikes Back. So it was we went to a bigger city, Denver. They had an IMAX theater. It was in the IMAX theater, and it was the full sound system and the whole 9 yards. And we stayed there, and we went to the amusement park, which today is called Six Flags, but at the time was Elitch's. And everything was built around seeing this movie, And by then I was like 13 or 12 or 13, and then I was 15 when the final of the first trilogy came out, Return of the Jedi. So it was, and I've always been this massive Star Wars fan. That's my A New Hope is my favorite movie of all time. So, all right. So now, wait. Let's look at a few of the comments here. Shall we look at a few of the comments here? Yeah, I think it should be on a T-shirt, Mike. Is he talking about the milk ratio still?
I
it's
think
the milk
so.
ratio.
Yeah, I think that's the milk ratio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Right
That's a
after I
business
saw
idea
Star
for you.
Wars. Yeah, there you go. Right after I saw Star Wars, I had to have the album. The Cantina Band got played so much, my father lost it for a week. I can believe that. I even incorporated a lame attempt of a lightsaber in one of my Jag restoration videos. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, and I agree. You got the coolest dad ever. If they're gonna do all that for you, man, that is pretty cool. Bill's seen all of them in the theaters first, except for Rogue One. I've seen them all in the theaters, so on their first run. So even the animated movie, right? Was 11. Yeah. Has any film done space battles as well as A New Hope before? No.
No, that's part of why the first one blew us away so much.
Yeah.
Also, in 1977, nobody had seen. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that was.
Yeah.
The
It kind of
opening.
took it to a new level.
Crazy.
Yeah, the opening was like so epic that it changed how openings in movies happen. I think.
And I think it was a combination of the sound and everything that no one had kind of seen before. So that just made,
Yeah. Well, and of course back then, you figured if it was on film, they must have filmed it. So then you're like, well, how did they do that? How did they put that on film? That kind of a thing. So
They built actual spaceships and did that whole scene. Clearly.
Right, exactly.
No other option.
That was it. He says, Terry says, I have old 8mm footage of me in a Darth Vader costume circa 79. Yeah. I don't know if I have any footage, but I definitely, that was it. That and Battlestar Galactica Cylon.
Yeah.
Totally epic. Absolutely a whole new genre. All right. So how about this one? Which of the movies is your favorite Star Wars movie and why? Start with Neil.
It's a tough one. I think it's got to be one of the prequels for me because I just got that nostalgia factor for it.
Right.
I'm gonna say, being a bit older now, I'm going to say Revenge of the Sith.
Revenge of the Sith. Okay, why is that your favorite?
I just the acting and the stories and the setting up the original series. It did just so many good things, and there were so many iconic scenes. I really like the movie, and I think it was probably the best one. Just adding all the nostalgia and everything in.
Okay, cool. Chris, how about you?
Well, that's a tough one, I got to say. They've all got a kind of a place, but I mean, New Hope, I really liked for the fact that it was low budget. So from that kind of perspective, has always been something that I thought is just kind of amazing compared to the others. They had the money to go forward. But I have to say, Return of the Jedi. I really like the redemption story there of Vader and the whole father-son kind of conflict. So for me, I think Return of the Jedi is, and that was actually the first film I saw in the cinema. Well, at least I think it is. I might have blocked out the other movies, but yeah. So I think Return of the Jedi.
Cool. Return of the Jedi is great. Mike?
Empire
Strikes Back.
Empire Strikes Back, because it is the best film of the trilogy. No, Star Wars. Star Wars has always been. That's it. No, it's Star Wars has the. All right, let me back up. For the youngsters in the audience, when Star Wars first came out, it wasn't Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope. It was Star Wars. And then there's a re-release. There's a 1980 re-release just before Empire came out, and that's the first time that the words Episode 4: A New Hope crossed the screen. So, if you're going into this the first time and everything's just existing, then Empire Strikes Back was just Star Wars 2. It wasn't Star Wars 5 until it's like, oh, okay, this is the middle of the story. But Empire is the one that, certainly the original trilogy, is the most middle of the story because, New Hope had to establish Jedi resolve. So Empire kind of begins in the middle, ends in the middle. And any franchise in a film series, it's still so rare to end a movie on bad guys won. You know, Empire was just that. Oh my God, Vader may be Luke's father. Han's been captured. Luke's hand got chopped off. It's just all of that. Oh my God, and then we had to wait 3 years for the end of the story. And I don't think, I don't think I've ever had an experience quite like that with any other franchise or any other film series.
Yep.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of unexpected stuff in Empire. You're right. So having that wait as well back then, especially pre-internet days. All the other films that kind of do that, everyone's talking about it, so it doesn't kind of have the same effect, I reckon.
You know, the last movie franchise thing where I had a similar feeling to the end of Empire was in the MCU, and it's the end of Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which I would still argue is the best Marvel movie because, again, watching that franchise from the beginning, and when we started off, and S.H.I.E.L.D. had been the underpinning of everything, and then it got into Winter Soldier, and oh my God, Hydra's infiltrated, and S.H.I.E.L.D. got brought down. Where are they gonna go next?
Right.
You know, it was such an unsafe ending. And you didn't get that same feeling with Infinity War, because Infinity War, it's like, well, they're going to do another one, and we know that these guys have a bunch more films. When we walked into Infinity War, we're going like, one of these two guys is going to die, and everybody else is going to be fine.
Yeah.
We just knew that walking into Endgame, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no real surprise.
Yeah.
So, with Empire, it's just, for me, for that generation, we haven't had like that huge cliffhanger, and we're not doing that 3-year turnaround between movies anymore. We're doing 1 or 2. So,
right. And so, and with the internet, there's a lot more talk, because we would have daily conversations in my friend group. Do you really think he's his father? And I mean, we'd have the same conversation every day, basically, but it was just like me and my 8 friends, and that was it. I didn't have anybody else to talk to because there was no such thing as internet or whatever. But it was a really big risk, and people today, a lot of people feel that's the best of all the movies, but at the time, the critics savaged it and they hated it. And they were like, oh my gosh, he has ruined Star Wars. I can't believe he's done this. But they didn't know the rest of the story, and so they thought, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing that he could do. Star Wars was so great, and now George Lucas has wrecked it, and the critics hated it. And now they'll say, oh no, I wasn't one of those critics that panned it. Really? Because I could go back and look at your review, and you hated it back then, and now you say, oh yeah, no, it was really great. But it's in the context of the entire story. So, Nathan, well,
YouTube, by the way, just gave me the notification for the live stream being on.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Stream's going.
Yep. Same here. That was my phone just beeping. So.
Oh, perfect. I haven't got it yet, so there we go. Nathan, go ahead.
Well, I'd have to agree with Mike on that. Empire is probably my favorite because I love the Battle of Hoth at the start of the film, and that's one of my favorite battles in Star Wars because it's kind of ground but also air, and also the ships are amazing. The miniatures were really well made and really detailed, and I love the snowspeeders because of the flaps that were on the side, because my dad had the snowspeeder Lego set, and I used to play with that thing and then come up with all these things that the flaps would do, and some of them obviously wouldn't work in real physics or whatever, but like it was the imagination, and then also it was a really good film because of the story and also how it left it on a cliffhanger. Then I'd probably have to say it goes 7 after that as my next favorite film.
Oh, okay.
Because
very cool.
Interesting.
Just had loads of Star Warsy moments.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. All right, let's look at our comments here. A New Hope. Bill says A New Hope. The introduction of the characters, everyone was so raw. And by the way, A New Hope is my favorite also. Terry says, I agree with Neil. Episode 3 is the best of the prequels. The tragedy of Anakin's fall is great. Tony Dafter Things says A New Hope. Also, groundbreaking, self-contained story and well enough formed characters to have their place. Totally agree. And then he rates them. Here we go. Hey, we'll get to the rest here. Struggled with Empire for quite a while. Maybe I was too young for something so dark, and that I can understand that too. Because I was in denial for years. For those 3 years, I was one of the ones that argued it can't be his father. I mean, that can't be.
It could have been a lie. It could have been a lie.
Absolutely been a lie. And I was arguing all the way into the theater that it was a lie all the way up until Obi-Wan Kenobi admitted it was a lie. And I'm like, oh my gosh, or that he lied about it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. I was stunned. But now it is a great story. And there was a book called The Splinter of the Mind's Eye that I read. And it's not canon, and it went in that he wasn't his father, and so that I much preferred that story at the time. Now
and you know that Splinter of the Mind's Eye was originally written as
I don't know, but it is
that was weird.
I love that book, by the way. So. Did you? What happened? Did you guys die?
I started to say something, and I think it cut your mic out. So I'm.
Oh, sorry.
Chris, you said that's weird too. Did you have Jay cut out?
It looked like you froze.
It looked like you froze, but I think you were just. I think you were just thinking. But you might have froze on us there.
Then probably the audio dropout I heard. Well, then I'll have to go back to the stream and I'll go see what Jay said sometime around 26 minutes in. Splinter of the Mind's Eye was originally written as the second film. So, right, that one on Splinter was, if we get X amount of money, we'll do this Empire, but if we don't get the money, we have to go lower budget, we'll go with Splinter of the Mind's Eye.
Mm-hmm. And I read Splinter of the Mind's Eye, and I loved it. It was one of the first
Splinter of the Mind's Eye
sci-fi books. I do, too. It was one of the first sci-fi books that I've ever read, and I loved it. I read it several times.
Splinter actually ties into something Bill asked in the chat.
Which is, I don't know.
Well, I'll let you go down.
And hold on.
Go down 2 from where you are right now, right from Dafter's comment.
Right here?
Yeah.
Has he already written the whole story?
He already read it. It's in the chat. It's 2 comments below the Dafter one you currently have on screen.
Oh, okay. And that is?
It's that one.
Yeah.
But hadn't he already written the whole story? And the answer to that one, Bill, is no. He actually hadn't. Because once you find out that Splinter of the Mind's Eye was originally written as the sequel, if you read Splinter of the Mind's Eye, let's just say that it's very obvious Splinter of the Mind's Eye was written before it was decided that Luke and Leia were siblings.
Mm-hmm.
Because
without any doubt.
Otherwise, there's some scenes in Splinter of the Mind's Eye that are very uncomfortable.
To say the least.
And there's enough behind-the-scenes information on Star Wars. You can find this. Sure. One of Lucas's, like a couple of Lucas's collaborators, left in Return of the Jedi because the final battle in Jedi was supposed to be Kashyyyk. It was going to be the Wookiees, and then he changed it to Ewoks because he decided Chewie made the Wookiees do whatever. Leia being Luke's sister wasn't decided until most of the way through the production. Lucas honestly didn't have all the 9 stories written up. Bill, he had some ideas, but no, he didn't have them written up. He was making things up as he went along.
Right. Here's a question: Didn't Alan Dean Foster write one of the films? I don't believe so.
Just the novelizations.
Yeah, just the novelizations. Right. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. I actually want to back up one more. And another thing about the Lucas having the story written all the time is, again, if you're old enough to go back to the 70s and the 80s, Lucas used to talk about how he was going to do 12 Star Wars films.
Yep.
And 12 was just the number that he kind of pulled out when he got asked, "Are you going to do more films?" So yeah, I'm going to do 12, and this is what started the whole. Lucas wrote the whole thing ahead of time. And then
that's right.
And then eventually it was like, well, I'm only going to do 9.
Yeah, 12.
And then and then when after the prequels came out, there's a novelization. There's an omnibus of the novels of the original trilogy, and George Lucas wrote an introduction to that, and he said, "I always envisioned Star Wars as a series of 6 films." So again, going back to did Lucas have this grand saga planned out beforehand? No, he didn't.
He had some ideas.
Some marketing.
Yeah. You can see all the way through all 9 films that they didn't have the whole overall story, because there's just those little bits that just,
Well, 7, 8, and 9 are their own.
yeah, let's not. Yeah,
they are. So that brings in our new question, and that is, which of the Star Wars movies is your least favorite, and why? And let's start with Nathan this time, because Nathan hasn't gotten a lot of talk time here.
Well, it's probably a very unpopular answer, but probably Episode 3, because I just feel like there are a few plot holes that kind of could have been avoided, and small things just here and there. Like in the original trilogy, Leia mentioned something about remembering her mother, but in Episode 3, her mother dies. So Padme dies straight after giving birth. So it's kind of like, well, how could she remember that unless she's got some incredible memory? But then I suppose there's also the plot hole of, if she can remember her mum, then surely she'd remember having a brother. But that's a different plot hole. But then also, I feel like they could have had a better Anakin, because there's a bit too much to dislike about the Anakin in Episode 3 than to like about the Anakin in Episode 3. Because even though he is meant to be the big bad guy, you still got to kind of like him to understand as to why Padme would like him.
Right. That's fair. That's a very fair, analysis of it, actually. Let's go with Chris.
Okay, I'm gonna go Last Jedi. That was not my favorite. I didn't like the way Luke was portrayed, and not for the obvious reason that some people would say and everything. I didn't mind the idea he was on that island, because that's kind of reminiscent of Yoda, going off into hiding and everything like that. But I would have preferred if all of that, his attitude in that, was all just more of an act to try and get Rey encouraged, the same way Yoda was kind of acting real crazy until he had to go, to that point. And his death and all of that, I didn't really like that. The death at the end, if he was actually there physically, it probably would have been better, I think. But yeah, Last Jedi for me just didn't really sit well. Sure.
Okay. Neil, what do you think?
I'm gonna have to agree with Chris, because I mean the Last Jedi, for the same reason, like Luke just was not portrayed well. The storyline of the slow horse carriage chase in space just did well with me. There was I didn't like how Snoke kind of got punked, and they kind of just got rid of his character like that. That wasn't very cool to me, because they didn't flesh out that character at all.
And also Princess Leia's Superman moment.
Yeah. Actually, it's more of a Mary Poppins,
Oh yeah.
I didn't like Snoke being killed off. I thought that was kind of a real bit of a shock.
Yeah.
But they could have developed his character further in 9, I guess. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and just also the tactics in battle didn't make any sense to me.
Mike, go ahead. It's all you, buddy.
Oh boy, for the main saga line, I would go with 8 for all the answers as well. Although I'm going to defend Luke in Episode 8. I think Luke is actually the only one who's right in Episode 8, and I think it's kind of a. So people don't like Luke in Episode 8 because they think that Luke has been written as the whiny "I'm going to give up" guy. But Luke is always in Star Wars the whiny "I'm going to give up" guy. As much as we love him in New Hope, you want to go on this adventure? No, I got to stay and help Uncle Owen with the evaporators. And then Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru. Okay, he's dead. I'm off.
You can play with your friends when your chores are done.
Yeah. But
I wanted to go to Tashi Station and pick up some power converters.
Right. And and then and then in the Empire, this training's hard. It's hard. And then of course in Jedi he gets to be badass. But then you get into all the extended universe stuff. That's not canon anymore, but you started getting into things like Dark Empire, and what's that? That's Luke turning to the dark side. And then what's Luke do in this novel? He sits out and he leaves. and he has to be talked into coming back. So, most iterations of the Star Wars story involve Luke Skywalker not wanting to be involved and somebody having to get him to just suck it up and go do the thing that he's got to do. So I found that Luke Skywalker in Episode 8 was actually very much in character. And then he's the one who was trying to break this cycle. So I think Luke is the one who's actually correct. And I think Rey undoes that by taking the Jedi books at the end. But that's kind of funny that I've gone off that far, because I was actually going to say my least favorite of the Star Wars movies is Rogue One.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Rogue One is your least favorite? No
Rogue
kidding.
One is my least favorite, and here's why. I think Rogue One is superfluous, and I think it causes continuity errors. And why is it superfluous? We don't really need the story of how the Death Star plans got hooked up, although it's been done in other media. If you guys have ever heard or remember the National Public Radio Star Wars radio series, did an entire episode on Leia before the beginning of the movie and how she was trying to get the plans, and it's a better story. And Rogue One, let's see. Oh, there's a thermal exhaust vent, which is sabotage. No, some sort of thermal exhaust vent for a reactor that's big enough to move, a moon-sized sphere through hyperspace. This is not sabotage. This is a straight line. Thermal venting port would be a necessity on any kind of reactor. The movie Passengers came out in the same year. That was the Act 3 climax. If we don't open the thermal exhaust port, the reactor will overheat, the ship will explode, and we will die. Right. So the entire, the thermal exhaust port was sabotage. That's just dumb. The battle scene over Scarif makes Red Leader and Gold Leader cowards. Ready for this one?
Go on.
Okay. So correct me if I'm wrong, because I've only seen Rogue One once, but when they finally get that transmission up from the tower, there's no discussion of anything. There's no dialogue. There's nothing that indicates that this is a tight beam transmission, that they're doing any kind of point-to-point. It's, we're going to broadcast this to the galaxy, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So if you broadcast that to the galaxy, every ship that was in orbit got that transmission. And we know that the Empire got that transmission and saw what was in the transmission because a whole bunch of reinforcements immediately show up.
Mm-hmm.
So that means every ship that was in orbit got that transmission, and I'm sure every ship that was in orbit recorded that transmission, because that would just be a feature.
Sure.
To have the answering machine, which means that every rebel ship in orbit above Scarif has to be destroyed other than the Tantive 4, or we can't get to Episode 4. And that means that Red and Gold squadrons disengaged from that battle before the transmission was made.
Okay.
That's a leap of logic, but I can see where you're getting there.
All right, but all plot holes aside and story points, you got to admit that Vader scene at the end has to be the best thing on film. With Vader.
It's a little fan servicey to me, because it doesn't establish. I think Vader, especially since he's been established as the cyborg, and going off how Prowse was choreographed to fight David Prowse, Vader was large and scary, but he wasn't limber, but that kind of made him scarier, that he was just the relentless machine. And his battles with Luke, right, everything's it's the minimum amount of movement needed to deflect Luke. It's the minimum amount of movement needed to strike Luke. And it's the same with Obi-Wan. Mm-hmm. Because so to suddenly see him jump and leap and spin, it's like, that's not...
That is a little bit of...
Vader.
Yeah. Not now.
Although it is a well-staged scene, but again, it's one of those things that makes me feel like it's a continuity glitch.
Yeah. And I've seen some theories on why that is. He had to he wasn't fully recharged from, his chase and all that kind of stuff,
Maybe.
He hadn't gone back to Mustafar to get a little R&R and, that kind of recharge his force powers and whatnot. But, I agree with you.
Ski Sand is saying, not dumb, the blueprints for the precise location of the thermal exhaust port was the secret provided to the rebels. I believe that the dialogue there is that just the existence of the thermal port getting put in, that the port itself being put in was, yeah.
Yep. And that's true. You know, he has a good point. Good point. Ski Sam. Farrah Films is here. I see Courtney has a question. Which program do Jedi use to open PDF files? Adobe Wan Kenobi? Yes, she is here. Thank you, Courtney. So nice to have you also. And I think Terry is referring, Chris, to your dislike movie. Amen to that. So there you go. Let's see.
I'm never gonna find it.
I have okay, so here's my next. Oh, wait, well, let me do this. Let me throw this graphic up on the screen for you guys. This is the critics' ratings on Rotten Tomatoes in order of the movies. Empire has a 94, A New Hope, The Force Awakens, Last Jedi are all in the 90s. Then a little bit of a drop into the low 80s, and then for Rogue One, Return of the Jedi, Revenge of the Sith. And then the bottom four are Solo, Attack of the Clones, The Phantom Menace, and Rise of Skywalker is dead last. Is this a fair list?
No.
Go ahead,
Return of the Jedi at number 6? Nah.
No.
That's not right. I know the Ewoks people didn't agree with it, but it wasn't that bad. You know, it would have been better if they were Wookiees, but to drop it down to 6 and put Last Jedi and Force Awakens above it,
Whereas I'd swap Solo with Rise of Skywalker because I actually quite enjoyed that. But then I'd also swap Rogue One with Return of the Jedi. And also swap Return of the Jedi with The Last Jedi.
I think Solo was underrated.
Yeah, I love
Solo. I think was underrated a little bit.
Solo is one of my favorites. Force Awakens should be a bit lower, not that much lower, but then Last Jedi should be a lot lower. The prequel should be higher too.
Whereas you see, I thought that for Solo, the Han Solo wasn't like quite Harrison Fordy enough. You know, you didn't quite have that exact like similarity. Which, for a start, you know, Harrison Ford has the scar on his cheek. Which, if they'd explained that in Solo, that would have been a really like nice point, because there are all sorts of like fiction stories about how Han Solo gets the scar on his chin, not his cheek.
Yeah, and they do that. They do that in Indiana Jones.
Yeah, I was going to say, didn't he get that when he accidentally hit himself with a whip?
Yes. So, Mike, what do you think of this list?
It's interesting on the. I mean, it's consensus critic ratings, but I used to be a critic for one of the local papers, and all I'll say about being a critic is you're a critic's opinion. Theoretically, a critic should be educated on the nuances of whatever field the critic is writing in, but it's really just an opinion that somebody got paid to write. So, I mean, yeah, I would. I mean, my order would be Empire, New Hope, Jedi, Solo, Force Awakens, and then
down from there.
Down from there.
All right.
So that's completely different order. But I mean, we could, we could do another 2 hours just arguing over the order of this list.
Over the list. All right. Let me give you another list. Are you ready for this? This is the list of fans on Rotten Tomatoes. So
I had a feeling
Empire, A New Hope, Return of the Jedi are up on the top in that order, and then you have 3 that have the exact same score: Rogue One, Force Awakens, Rise of Skywalker, and Revenge of the Sith is just a little bit below that. Then there's a huge drop for the last 4, which is Solo, The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and The Last Jedi is way down on the bottom with only a 43 rating.
I'd swap Solo and The Last Jedi around, personally.
I think Phantom Menace deserves more credit. Maybe not for story-wise, but when you watch the behind-the-scenes of that kind of revolutionized cinema the same way New Hope and everything did back then. So that kind of, introduced all that CGI and stuff that we like or don't like now. But that kind of film did that.
I should have worn my Babylon 5 hoodie. No, there's a reason for that, but Nathan first.
With the prequels though, I feel like George Lucas was a bit too. Oh yeah, we have this CG that we can use for everything. Let's make all the ships far too shiny, and then kind of make it not look like Star Wars anymore. But yeah,
and that's exactly right. Like when you do watch, because I love watching the behind the scenes stuff. When you do watch that, he does make some comments. We got to get the price down because if we can do it for a good price, everyone will want to do it. So it was a 2-hour commercial too for Industrial Light and Magic, I guess.
Yep. And they talk about the motion capture stuff that they did with Jar Jar Binks, and it was revolutionary, and it did open up a whole new toolbox for the toolbox of filmmakers.
Right.
Yeah, I would switch like Solo and Rogue One. Last Jedi, I agree with. I think the prequel should be a bit higher than the new ones, but overall, it's better than the critics' list.
It's interesting how the sequel trilogy has made people reassess the prequel trilogy.
Yeah.
And I think that's just simply the prequel trilogy, for all of its faults, was still driven by George, and it was one guy driving the 3 movies, and as opposed to the sequels, which were just not. They didn't go into the sequels with a coherent plotline setup. So, right. J.J. Abrams did what he did. Rian Johnson who, thanks for making Knives Out, Ryan, so we remember that you're actually a good filmmaker. But I mean, Ryan went off to do his own thing, and while I haven't seen Rise of Skywalker, I've seen enough audience response and read enough spoilers. I think it's fair to say that, a lot of what J.J. Abrams did in Episode 9 was going, look, that Episode 8 thing didn't really happen. It's really this. I mean, but that's hurts your movie if you're spending half of your movie trying to undo the prior movie. Just,
also,
get on and roll with it.
What JJ was left with his main villain who had set up in Episode 7 with Kylo Ren being kind of like a weaker villain because he's kind of being challenged by does he want to be a good guy or not, and does he want to go do all of this, which kind of damages what JJ might have thought he was going to do for Episode 9, because his strong villain is now a weaker villain. His then like supreme leader emperor type character is now dead.
Yeah.
He might have gone to go on and expand. And also there's other points that also make it a strange film that kind of ruined maybe what the sequels could have been.
Yeah. Terry says, I've always hated filmmaking by committee. A film needs to be a single cohesive vision and not a board. There's an old saying in business that a camel is a horse that was built by committee. As everybody had to have their own thing in there. And the latest trilogy feels more like a camel than a racing horse.
Yeah, and if you look at the fact that they keep firing directors and everything in the new films, because they're not happy with their vision. Well, you think you'd know that when they're hired, but it's definitely a committee thing that's happening.
Yeah, and that sort of happened with Solo too. They had these guys in there, and they
Lord and Miller.
And they're good filmmakers, and then they're like, we're not liking why you're doing that.
That would have probably been a really good film if they'd done it.
Yeah, I mean, that film was always doomed to fail because didn't they basically shoot it twice? So
they
effectively,
you're never going to make the money back.
Well, it did make it. They did make their money back.
Yeah.
They just didn't make a lot of money.
They just didn't make profit. They cut even.
Yeah.
And that's not because of the end film either. That's just because they did it twice.
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I have mixed feelings on Solo. I walked out of that one, and honestly, for me, Solo is the most pure entertaining Star Wars movie since Return of the Jedi.
It was definitely entertaining.
But it was also trying too damn hard to explain absolutely everything. I actually think the actor who played Solo, I actually think he did a good job. I think he didn't try to Harrison Ford it, but I think that worked to his advantage, because if he'd just been trying to do a Harrison Ford impersonation, then he would have been stuck like poor Brandon Routh in Superman Returns, right? Who got forced into being Christopher Reeve and didn't get to make the character his own. So I think in Solo, I think he did a good job playing the character. Was he Harrison Ford? No. Did I buy him as Han Solo? Yeah, after the first, after I took 20 minutes to get used to him, sure. He had the attitude. I bought it.
Who was really good was Donald Glover
Donald
as
Glover's
Lando.
Donald
Calrissian.
Glover's great in everything.
That was
Oh yeah,
amazing.
And come on, the shower Wookiee scene was fantastic.
yeah. Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, it was. But Donald Glover is like, he was
land.
without any question.
And the sound editors on Solo pulled off one of the greatest things ever, because I love the sounds chosen when Han asks Chewbacca his name, and the 3 Wookiee sounds that they put in there. Like, you found the Wookiee sounds to say Chewbacca. Oh my God. Like, I got it. It was like, that was just good job, sound editor, right there. That was a great moment.
Yeah, subtle, but wonderfully done. So, do you guys watch fan films? Star Wars fan films?
Sometimes.
Yes, I do.
I think probably Star Wars has more fan films than any franchise. And I've seen fan films for Batman and for Duke Nukem, I've seen, for James Bond or whatever. But Star Wars, I think, has the best fan films out there, and certainly the most, dedicated fan films out there.
And there's some really good ones out there.
Yeah. So what's your favorite fan film?
That's I think it's the channel Star Wars Theory. He did one on Vader. I reckon that was really well made. Short. He's actually making part 2 now, I believe. So that one's highly recommended if you haven't seen it.
I have not. I will have to go see it.
There was one recently. Well, it wasn't recently. I watched it recently, second time. But Dad'll know it. It's Apprentice with the Darth Maul one.
Darth Maul one, yeah.
That was good. I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, that one is excellent. That one's excellent, especially if you like good lightsaber fighting scenes.
It was great choreography. Definitely.
The storyline on that's fantastic as well.
Yeah.
Anybody else have a favorite fan film?
Oh yeah, you should share my screen.
Okay, wait a minute, let me get it. Here we go. Uh-oh.
My favorite fan film
is it Cops?
This one is great.
Bad Boys. That one is the best one too.
All right, so on the off chance that you don't know that one, that is it's called Troop. If you search for Troops Star Wars, it goes back to 1997. It is a fantastic fan film. Earlier, I'm going to get to use that one to circle back around to something. Earlier, I joked that I should be wearing my Babylon 5 hoodie today, but there's a reason for that, and I can cycle back that through Troops, because a lot of the visual effects in the fan films Troops were done by Babylon 5 visual effects artists. So, and Babylon 5 was the first TV show that did all of its special effects digitally, and did all the space scenes on computers. And J. Michael Straczynski's talked in his biography and in interviews on other things how, right around after Babylon 5 started winning all the visual effects Emmys, because Babylon 5 started winning the visual effects Emmys, Lucas came down and talked to the Babylon 5 people, and then he came back with a bunch of ILM people and started talking to the Babylon 5 people and seeing what they were doing.
Right.
It was seeing what they were doing on Babylon 5 on a TV budget that helped push Lucas into, okay, the technology's ready and I'm going to do the prequels. And a couple of the people who worked on Babylon 5 actually got hired away to go work on the prequels. So some of the digital matte painting techniques that got used in Star Wars 1, 2, and 3 got invented on Babylon 5 to do the shots of the station interior. For Babylon 5, when they look out over the center and you can see like the gardens up on the side and then the thing, and that's this kind of 2D matte painting with 3D geometry, and that had been the first time that had been done, and now that's a pretty standard technique.
Yeah. I didn't know that. That's really cool.
I didn't either.
Troops also had a reference to another show I like, MST3K.
Yes.
Nathan, do you watch
yes, if you haven't, for the audience, if you haven't seen Troops, you should go watch that as soon as possible, right after the stream.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Nathan, what about you? Do you watch any Star Wars fan films?
I have seen many Star Wars fan films. It's just I can't quite remember what some of them are called, because some of them have really strange names that I forget. But yeah, there are some really good ones. That's really, yeah.
Absolutely. The very first quote unquote fan film that I saw, Hardware Wars. Hardware Wars. Remember that one?
Hardware. You'll laugh. You'll cry. You'll kiss $3
$3
goodbye. I have the special edition of Hardware Wars where they went back with the digital effects.
Yep.
Nice.
Oh yeah, it's great. Came out on like a
remembered one.
DVD.
Yeah.
And I have like Thumb Wars and things like that too.
Yeah.
It's all on the same DVD thing, you know. Oh, it's great.
There's a fan film I'm trying to find, and I've been trying to find it the entire stream, and I don't think I'm going to because there's so many fan films, and of course it's one of the many Star Wars versus Star Trek fan films. So I'll just tell you the premise, and then maybe you can find it yourself because there's hundreds. I'm just tired of scrolling for it, and it's a Star Wars scroller, and the scroll goes by, and then it cuts to Earth. And then here comes the text from the earlier Star Wars scroller. And then it cuts to the kids walking on the ground, and they're just having a conversation. And then suddenly, look! And all the letters from the Star Wars scroller start falling and hitting everything and blowing things up. And they're and they're like clinging onto each other, like, we're going to die! And they look up in the sky, and it's the giant Star Wars logos getting ready to fall on them. And then the U.S. Enterprise appears and blows up the Star Wars logo, and the one kid says, I told you Star Trek was better than Star Wars.
Oh, that's hysterical.
And I can't find it, but it's such a, it was such a funny freaking idea to just see the Star Wars scroller spin off into space and
crash into Earth.
It's such a great idea. So if I find it, I'll put the link.
There was one that, oh man, it was on the Force.net for a long time. It was the one where they mashed together the Princess Bride fight scene, but they did with lightsabers. They replicated that exact, sword fighting scene between the two, Inigo Montoya and the Dread Pirate Roberts against each other, next to the Cliffs of Insanity, except they do it with lightsabers, and it's wonderful. Yeah, it's a wonderful. Star Wars fan film because they do it with lightsabers. It's great. That was one of my favorites too.
Has anyone seen the Bat in the Sun Vader versus Batman?
Yes.
Short? I have not. No.
It's worth a watch.
You want to see that one?
Okay.
Yeah, you'll want to see that one. You'll want to see. What's the name of that series, Chris? Not superhero beatdown.
I think it might be.
Hardware Wars goes back to the 70s, though. It was like, made right after A New Hope was made. And it was obviously all, the lasers, they like scratched the film, but it was awesome, right?
Well,
they blew up irons and things like that,
But it's got to, what is it, Doggy Ben Doggy? Did you suddenly feel a great disturbance in the force as millions of people cried out in terror and were suddenly silenced? No, just a little headache. What are you saying? I can't understand what he's saying.
You guys ever see Spaceballs?
Oh, yes. Yeah. That has the Millennium Falcon in it, right?
That one in the Millennium, what is it, the RV, right?
It actually has it has the Falcon in it.
Does it? I don't even. It's been so long since I've seen it.
At the very end of the movie, when they're in that diner, roadside space side diner, they
had
the
Millennium Falcon model in it, and asked George Lucas if they could, and he said, "Yeah, that'd be hilarious."
Oh, cool, interesting.
Yeah,
Spaceballs. Mel Brooks' last really brilliant film, and again, seeing that in the theaters in 1986, I remember, Jay, you might remember this as well, like the first time at the beginning of the movie when, we don't know it's meter maid yet, but the first time she's going over the camera, and it's just forever and ever, and the music starts, and then the music will stop, and then the music will start again, and it's still going, and it's just like such a subtle, and the theater breaking up in laughter, and it's like, wow, we're laughing at a VFX shot.
This is hysterical. That's exactly what happened. Love that. All right, well, let's ask this question: what direction would you like to see Star Wars go from here? Are there, they're doing television shows. They're talking about a new trilogy, stepping it forward. The Mandalorian is out. and there's an Obi-Wan Kenobi in the works, television show. Where would you like to see Star Wars go from here?
I'd like to see it come to the UK, like The Mandalorian.
There you go.
Out yet.
Probably would.
Yeah, I'd like to see it go to England. That's where I'd like to see Star Wars.
Wait. Mandalorian's not out in the UK yet?
No.
I can't watch it unless I watch it illegally, and I'm not going to do that. So it's
Oh,
out in the UK.
Well, apparently it's got this Yoda baby thing that you might have heard of.
Possibly.
It's a small thing.
Possibly. Yeah, I don't think Disney Plus is released
Disney Plus
in...
isn't out until like March 24th, I think.
Oh, and they're
It's-
not gonna let it go to Netflix overseas, of course, because that would be a 3-year contract, right?
Yeah. So, but it won't be long. You got another month to go.
Yeah.
Less than a month now.
Counting down the days.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
believe it.
Before, I used to think that Star Wars could only really go with the movies, and I mean they could have a few side shows, but it would only be the movies. But after seeing The Mandalorian, I think they could really roll with this. The Mandalorian was just amazing, and I loved it, and I think it would be really cool to see them do more of these instead of going off on like another trilogy or something.
Yeah, great.
I think that'd be cool to see.
It's I definitely agree with that. I mean, when you see The Mandalorian, it's well, I liked it. The story is kind of simple. It kind of feels like you're watching a video game. Go here, go there, but it's easy to get into. And yeah, the action and everything for kind of a television budget or streaming budget, I think they did a great job. And I would actually like to see the fact that, like, say, Mark Hamill's still young enough, do a story with him, why he can, and have a Luke Skywalker ongoing series. Or if you've seen The Mandalorian, spoilers, the two troopers in there, a comedy show based on one of those episodes where there's two troopers. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. I reckon that would be a good direction too.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and The Mandalorian is basically spaghetti westerns, strung together, but in the Star Wars universe, and it's really good. I mean, because of that, Baby Yoda is essentially a MacGuffin. So that's but he's a really cute MacGuffin.
Yeah.
He's a MacGuffin that even the audience cares about.
And I wondered, was Baby Yoda going to be for season 2 when they started, or was that a character that was, going to end by season 1, but it became so popular they had to go with it and bring it back? That's the way I was kind of thinking it might have gone. But I reckon they're stuck with him now.
I think so. And a MacGuffin is a term that Alfred Hitchcock created to basically have something, a plot device that really is irrelevant to the story, but the audience just knows that it matters to the characters and it drives the story.
I think we could say it's like we could even say the Death Star plans are the MacGuffin in Star Wars, because the movie is really Save the Princess.
Yeah. Yes, that's exactly what it is.
The Death Star plans to the Rebel Alliance. Yeah, that's definitely.
That's what drives the story. Yeah, if you've ever seen Foul Play, they have a cigarette box, with
the rolls,
with the roll of microfilm in it. Who knows what's on the microfilm, and who cares? It drives the whole story.
Point. It's like the Maltese Falcon. The Maltese Falcon
is a great MacGuffin. Yeah, exactly. Before the term MacGuffin was created.
I think MacGuffin was invented for the Maltese Falcon. I think that's when he came up with it.
Oh, right.
Wow. Well, there you go.
Of course, like in North by Northwest, the spy microchip they're trying to get their hands on, or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, but it was something like that.
But that's essentially what Baby Yoda, quote unquote, Baby Yoda is. He's not actually called Baby Yoda. He's called the child or the asset.
So just since we've been discussing MacGuffin, and I went ahead and Wikipedia'd it, so I've got that up on my screen right now, but this tells me something different. We're saying that the term was invented by Alfred Hitchcock, but at least according to Wikipedia, the term was originated by Angus MacPhail, and Alfred Hitchcock just took it. Oh. So go figure.
Well, how about that?
Yeah.
I did not know that. I always credited it to Alfred Hitchcock.
I did too. It usually is. Our local movie theater has the lounge, is MacGuffin's Lounge. Alfred Hitchcock invented this, so go. You know what? It can happen. But you know what? It can happen with things like with say that the right, if I say the Matrix effect, everybody pictures freezing and then the camera spinning around, except by the time the Matrix did that effect, Howard Stern was using it as the opening for his TV show. If Howard Stern's using it for his TV show, it's not a new, but that, the way that the Matrix did it made everybody go, oh my god, the Matrix effect. Or you'll see a bunch of tutorials around how to do this Sam Colder transition. Sam Colder did not invent that transition. I've been doing that transition since before Sam Colder existed. It's not a Sam Colder transition. He just made it popular to a group of people and got the name.
And then they get the recognition for it.
Well, regardless, The Mandalorian is a great show. And I think that live action television shows, especially with the technology that they're using to create The Mandalorian, is definitely a way to go.
Oh, hey, this is interesting. Okay. I'm still on the Wikipedia page. George Lucas on the MacGuffin. In contrast to Hitchcock's view of a MacGuffin as an object around where the plot revolves, but around which the audience does not care, George Lucas believes that the audience should care about the MacGuffin almost as much as the dueling heroes and villains on screen. Now, I said that the Death Star plans are the MacGuffin of Star Wars, and we all went, yeah. But here's what Lucas describes R2-D2 as the MacGuffin of Star Wars.
He does hold the plans.
Well,
fair enough.
He does hold the plans. Really, obviously the original Star Wars was, he stole ideas from Kurosawa, and one of those ideas was, what if we told this huge epic story from the eyes of the lowest form of life on the planet, the Untouchables, and he did that in the Hidden Fortress. Kurosawa did, and so Lucas said, "What if we told this story from a droid's point of view? Throwaway toaster, point of view, basically." And so most of the story is told from the point of view of the droids themselves, and it makes it an interesting way to see the story.
Yeah, and all of the Lucas Star Wars films have done that with R2-D2, but when you go to the new ones, he's just sitting there turned off, so he's no longer that storyteller. So that kind of ruined those as well, if you want to jump back to that.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
I should have kept it.
Especially since R2 kind of has to be the storyteller since 3PO's memory got wiped.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the end.
I don't think, BB-8 was kind of cool, but I don't think they needed to have him as the main. They should have kept R2 just for the fact he had always been the storyteller, I guess.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, and, one of the issues that I have with the new trilogy is that they're introducing new characters without really fleshing out all the old characters. They introduced a brand new BB-8 droid who had more screen time in the commercial than he did in the movie itself, the black BB-8 droid. And then Rose, I thought, was a great character who was totally underutilized, and she was really underutilized in the last movie. Instead, they're bringing in all these new, protagonists that are essentially replacing her when they easily could have just expanded her character, and they could have done a brilliant job at it.
Another thing I didn't like from the Last Jedi is you had the Luke character. I understand the point of that, but one of the things I really didn't like is when Finn's and Poe's storyline in the Last Jedi, because for Finn at least it started with, in the last movie he went from
Sorry.
That's all right.
Oops.
He went from a deserter to a person who's not running away anymore. And then in The Last Jedi, where does he start? As a deserter again. And it's kind of like they kind of reset his old storyline instead of doing a new storyline with him. And then of course Poe was kind of just like, he went from a brave, dedicated, always fighting for the rebellion type guy to this just, trigger happy,
annoying smartass.
Yeah, trigger happy, not a really just a bad character.
It's Force Awakens made me like Rey, Poe, and Finn. Last Jedi made me not like Rey, Poe, and Finn. And Neil kind of hit it with Finn. I'll even take it farther. In the first movie, I'm going to call it the first movie of that trilogy. Finn, he's the deserter because why? I don't know. We killed the old. This is what happens when you give a janitor a gun, because apparently Finn was not originally a frontline combat troop. But I mean, and then and then he kind of falls for Rey. I never understood the Finn Poe shipping. I guess Poe could have been interested in Finn, but it was so obvious that Finn had eyes for Rey. Mm-hmm. And then we get into the second movie, and so we'll timeline for a minute. Force Awakens happens, and then The Last Jedi's only a couple days later. Right, I think maybe even less than a week later, but it's whenever Finn is getting out of his bacta tank. So as far as Finn's concerned, Last Jedi is immediately after getting cut down by Kylo Ren in Force Awakens. Mm-hmm. And at that point he was all, Rey, I'm so into Rey. Oh, look at me staring at Rey. I'm Finn, I like Rey. And then Last Jedi, because Ryan, this is the biggest mistake, and I can fix so much of Last Jedi by removing a couple lines of dialogue. Let's not say we only have 18 hours of fuel left. Because as soon as you tell us that the fleet has 18 hours of fuel left, you gave the movie a hard timeline, and Last Jedi is 1 day. Mm-hmm. And if Last Jedi is not 1 day, and it's an indeterminate amount, maybe they're being chased for months or weeks, then a lot of the problems with Last Jedi goes away. We can just assume there's a bunch of stuff we don't see. But Last Jedi has to be 1 day. So Finn goes from Rey to Rose in 1 day. So now I can't trust Finn, because this guy deserts, and he changes his loyalties every day. We can't trust this guy.
Well, in his defense, he's probably spent the last part of his life or career just staring at females wearing stormtrooper costumes. So these are the first ones he's seen.
Yeah. Got a point there.
Can't argue with that.
That's right. His
Ooh,
only
another one.
But,
That's good.
It's just
so.
I also felt
and you could fit, adding to what you just said, if you make it in a different time frame with the petrol or the fuel. If you were to remove that part and say they're flying through an asteroid field, that's why they're going so slow, that fixes part of the story too. If there was another reason why they're, this very slow, boring chase.
Yeah. And I think that was just Ryan trying to come up with. Well, Ryan Johnson always said he was a reboot BSG fan, and once you get that, you can see the BSG influence in Last Jedi. And Chris, I actually like the thought about the asteroid field. That would be a good reason for a slow speed chase.
Sure, I do too. Something better than what they had.
Then it would have been even more Empire-y.
Exactly. And you can't tie into that.
Another thing I didn't get from it is they had these, they attacked with the TIE fighters, but then they got out of the range of the bigger ship, and they're like, oh, we have to go back, or we don't have support from them. And I'm like, isn't that why you have TIE fighters, to be able to attack outside of the bigger ship? That doesn't make any sense. I mean, if I would have sent every TIE fighter to attack, and it didn't make a lot of sense to me.
Look, the TIE fighters should have been in the air 5 minutes before the beginning of the damn movie.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about it, that movie begins with a rebel transport going away from an Empire destroyer. Sorry, I'm saying the names of the factions wrong. I don't care.
The military,
and then it's suddenly we're going to launch the why weren't those already in the air? The TIE fighters should be strafing that ground base already so that they can't get in their transports. What are you doing?
The big ship.
But wait a minute. Hux was a good guy all along, right? Isn't that one of the revelations of Episode 9 that General Hux was
not exactly,
guy, but he doesn't like anyone else. Other people have.
But if he is somewhat resistant sympathetic, that would kind of explain his utter crap tactics at the beginning of Last Jedi. If he's kind of a secret semi-good guy, that's why he doesn't have his fighters already in space like they should be, right? That's why he's willing to stand there and let Poe, prank call him rather than just go shoot that.
Right.
Something that someone suggested to me earlier. Sorry for interrupting you.
Please do. I will talk if you don't.
Something that someone suggested to me earlier was that what would have made it more interesting was if the smaller command ship was boarded by the First Order, and it was a bit more kind of life or death. There are people trying to hide from the First Order because the First Order are on their smaller ship. That would have probably made it slightly more interesting than just watching these two ships moving along really slowly in space, when it's not even like, even if it was an asteroid field, that would be more interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, and the whole when they went to the casino planets, they have the ability to take a ship and go elsewhere. Now, if you think about it, if you make it realistic, I don't know, but wouldn't you have taken your most senior people, Leia and all that, put them on the ship and get them to safety if you've got that ability? I mean, leaving them in danger, that didn't make any sense. You take your commanders and whatever, and like your president, for example, and get them out of there.
So where do you guys think they should go with the movies from here? Is it time for a new generation, a new story, a reboot, a reset of everything? Boom Boy.
I think going back to the Republic era and the Clone Wars era, I know they did a show in the Clone Wars, but there's so many other storylines going on in the Republic timeline than just, you know, the Jedi there. So possibly, you know, doing some stuff with the Republic and maybe even the Separatists would be kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
And television shows, are you guys looking forward to Obi-Wan Kenobi series?
Oh,
very
yeah.
much so. You and McGregor,
like
I love you. And it's, yeah, very.
It'll basically be the best part of the prequels in a series.
Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ewan McGregor.
Yeah.
I loved him, and I'm really looking forward to the new stuff.
Yeah, I reckon they could do a trilogy based on the origin story of the Jedi, and then another film, Origin of the Sith, how those two came together, or even a series.
Yeah. So like a way prequel.
Way prequel.
To the prequel.
You know, you do a new trilogy, and the first episode, Star Wars Jedi, and that shows you how the Jedi came to be, and the second one is called Sith, and then that shows you how they came into existence. I don't know what the third would be, but
Mandalore.
The Republic, the formation of the Republic or something. It would be way back.
You know what Star Wars film I want to see?
What?
Cut to my screen.
Okay.
I think we all want to see this.
There you go. That's the one. We want to see this one right here. Hit film. There it is. That's the best shot right there, too. Rise of the Dark Side, a hit film story.
I want to see that one. I'm with you, Jay, on that cockpit shot, the low angle, the looking up. We already talked about that one. Like, just what an awesome shot.
That was a great shot. Great shot.
Such a great shot.
Yeah. Have you guys ever? I know Mike has never done a lightsaber battle of any kind. Have you guys ever thought about making a Star Wars fan film?
I've thought about it, and I've talked to some of my friends about it. We're just waiting, because one of them is going to be going to the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge thing. So they're going to be buying a custom lightsaber, so we can use that for close-ups and stuff, and then we'll use like dowel or something for the long shots. I don't want to a really expensive lightsaber.
Did they have so they've got a Galaxy Edge at Euro Disney or Star Wars Paris, whatever, or Disneyland Paris, whatever it's called now?
They're going to the one in America.
Florida. It'll be Florida then. Yeah.
You know what Star Wars movie I want to see? Porkins, A Star Wars Story. The one all of us need. It's the one the fans want.
Porkins. The backstory.
Not the hero we wanted, the hero he needed. Yeah, you know, he probably got his name Porkins from that same Imperial officer that, you know, Han Solo. I like to now I feel like there was a poor little chubby kid right behind him, and the same soldier's like, "What's your name?" "I don't remember. I'm an orphan." Move on, Porkins. Like,
Porkins. I think they should call it Porkins. Cover me, I'm going in.
Cover me.
I think Star Wars has the potential to bring in like a comedy series with all these kind of ideas.
Well, Solo, the movie Solo was a very, very lighthearted movie. It had its very serious moments, but there was a lot of lightheartedness to it, and I thought it was refreshing. I like that. And I know a lot of people did.
If they'd actually continued making it, because I think there were originally plans for there to be more of them, because they kind of set it up with the whole bit with Darth Maul at the end.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, I mean, we've already seen him nearly everywhere in the Star Wars universe. I mean, he keeps coming back somehow. I mean, why didn't all the other characters who die keep getting robotic limbs and all of that? But I don't know whether Solo would have taken a more dark turn as soon as Darth Maul came into it, because that would have meant that you would have had, like, the person who can just wave the lightsaber around and kill everyone. Whereas I guess something that was quite good about Solo, just the film, was that all of the characters were kind of even. They all had their blasters and chips. It wasn't force wielders versus dudes with guns. It was kind of guns versus guns.
Yeah.
Both kind of normal.
I'd want to see them continue that Darth Maul storyline in Kenobi, maybe.
I reckon it's going to probably end up in the series streaming service.
I would
Even
hope.
Solo, or maybe that character will appear in some of the other shows.
Okay,
Although,
Mike,
Solo TV series.
do you remember the radio broadcast called Stormtrooper Bob? It was a British radio broadcast. It was 10. Was it 10? No, it was 15 episodes, and the first 5 episodes covered The New Hope. The second 5 covered Empire, and then the third 5 went through and covered Return of the Jedi. And it was a radio broadcast in Britain. It was called Stormtrooper Bob, and they follow Stormtrooper Bob through the epic story, but you get to see it from his perspective. If you've never listened to it, you should absolutely listen to it.
I am not familiar with it, but I am Googling it right now, and I think I found it. Download the entire series from StarWarsFanWorks.com. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stick that in the chat.
There you go, Stormtrooper Bob.
And then, and then I made the mistake of googling up Porkins.
Oh, jeez.
And on StarWarsFandom.com, oh my God, it's horrible. It's oh my God. According to StarWars.Fandom.com, in training, Star Wars rotund physique earned him the nicknames Belly Runner and Piggy. Like, it's bad enough that his canon name is Porkins with his nickname of Piggy.
Do they even have pigs in Star Wars?
Apparently they do.
They got to. I mean, I know they have ducks.
Space pigs.
I just, like,
That's not
wow. I haven't been that nonplussed by a Star Wars wiki entry since they changed Corpsey's name.
What were you saying, Nathan?
Well, talking about the space pigs, there's something like that in Star Wars Rebels first series, I think. There's some form of creature where Lando's in it, and he's
Maybe like an
transporting his pigs.
Oh, Gamorrean Guard.
Yeah,
Of course, there are pigs in Star Wars.
If you
Go ahead, blip to my screen for a moment, Jay.
Okay.
Of course, there are pigs in Star Wars.
Oh, there they are.
Yeah, that's Porkins' father.
The Ugnaughts.
Yeah, the Ugnaughts are piggish as well.
That's
hysterical.
that's true. They do.
They're like many guys from that one Twilight Zone episode.
Oh, good pull.
Yep.
The beauties in the eye of the beholder.
Oh, he got the episode title up on that one.
That's correct.
Very good pull. Apparently Nick Nolte plays one of the Ugnaughts on Mandalorian.
Yes, he does. He plays the Ugnaught.
I have spoken.
Queel.
Okay.
Yeah, you've heard.
Neat.
You've heard. I have spoken. That's him.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, you gotta see it.
Whoop,
For
Wrong.
your question, sorry.
button. No, go ahead.
I was also thinking about your questions. What do you want to see Star Wars doing next? And I was just thinking about there's the kind of comic yet also book series, which is called Star Wars Jedi Academy. I don't know if you've read it, but I quite enjoyed it because it was quite funny and also showed the lives of Jedi as they were younger, but kind of in a realistic school environment. So it probably isn't all that accurate to Star Wars, but I think that could be quite interesting, even if it's just as like a cartoon anime thing, a bit like Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So
I think
Yeah.
I think with the new technology that they're using to make the Mandalorian, they can do a lot of things that
Yeah.
they weren't ever able to do before, and keep
Yeah,
it to
that's
the level
amazing
of quality.
stuff. Yeah.
I
It is.
recommend the behind the scenes on the Mandalorian. It's really cool. It's what
That-
they're doing. It's amazing.
Yeah,
The
that
only
rear
behind the
projection stuff is
Mm-hmm.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just
It's awesome.
mind blowing.
Crazy.
The only
Yep.
behind the scenes stuff that I've seen is the VFX Artist React video that came out today.
Corridor.
I watched,
Yeah, just
a few minutes before the stream started, and I kind of went kind of cautious in case they started discussing spoilers because I haven't seen it yet because it's not out in England.
Right.
But it's it's quite like, looks quite interesting, and I want to see
Yeah.
it.
It's they and interestingly, they talked in that live stream. Corridor Digital did. Sam talked about, hey, we're working on these, this camera tracking so that we can do that. When he says we, he's talking about him and Josh Davies are
Yeah.
working on that
Mhm.
together.
That's
Josh
been
is
fun.
actually
Yeah.
writing the code for him on that. So that'll be really interesting when they come out. But basically, they're trying to do their own homebrew version of that technology
They
over
said
at
they'll have
Corridor
a video
Digital.
about them in a few days, I think, or a
Yeah.
week.
Yep, and they are close. Josh says he's done with his end of writing it and stuff, and he's sent it on over to Sam, and he's going to start working on it. So yeah, if you haven't seen that, Corridor Digital did a great video that they released today on not just the technology or the CGI of Mandalorian, but all, which is another
That's
wonderfully
another
fun show to
new
watch.
show. Another amazing show.
Yeah,
Do
but
they
they
Still haven't seen that.
it's
Do they
good.
even have-
If you have access to it, definitely watch it.
It's great.
Yeah, we have Netflix. I'll
It
watch
is
it soon.
very adult though. It's very adult, the show. Okay, so keep that in mind. It's for adults. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there that is not for kids. But the Mandalorian is, I think the technology that they have makes it so easy, for them. I mean, it is hard as a filmmaker to, okay, we're going to film this scene that happens at dawn. And it's going to take a week to do because we have to film it at dawn, Well, now they can just leave a dawn scene up and film all day long and be done in one day, because they just have the same scene, and if they don't like this rock that's back in the background here, well, move it over there, and they can move it in real time, and then go. It's amazing, the technology that they have. So I think it opens up a lot of stuff that they were never able to do before.
I think technically the really impressive part is the 3D calculation and the projection they're doing to get the parallax right, because it's the principle, it's rear screen projection just on massive steroids.
But to do it in real time is amazing.
Yeah,
that's
the power
what
of
it
the
is.
Unreal Engine.
Yeah,
And it's one of those things that really grew from when I think it was Gravity that they first tried to do the light box on, but
yeah, but it's just video game technology that they're applying to filmmaking.
Yeah.
And
of
I mean,
course,
I've said
It was also done for when they were doing the cinematography for the Lion King film that just came out, because I was watching behind the scenes, and they were talking about how they were doing almost like their scouting out of the locations, but using like VR headsets, and they all of the directors, producers, cinematographers were all just going out and searching them, and they're like, hey, come look over here, and then there's just this clip of them all sat at their chairs just sitting around, spinning around with these VR headsets on. But then when you see what they're looking at, they've basically got the entire set. so they're able to fly around it and kind of find anywhere they want, and they can move the sun and all of that kind of stuff. So
And
Yeah.
game technology brought to film again.
we've been able to do a lot of this for a while. It just continues to iterate and get better and more realistic. I'm thinking of the behind the scenes on Peter Jackson's Fellowship of the Ring. Right, where they were doing a similar thing, and he'd have the headset on, and he had the camera controls, so he could, move the camera crane controls that would move the virtual camera in space. And they showed Peter Jackson staging that fight scene in Moria, but right around that point, it was lower resolution geometry. There was no textures. They didn't have any lights. It was just the gray plastic. But I remember seeing that with Fellowship of the Ring, thinking how awesome that was, that you could put the goggles on and be in the virtual environment and place your virtual camera and move the thing and plot the things out. And and now we're just, again, better, stronger,
Fellowship
faster.
of the Ring, or was that with the Hobbit films? Because
It was Fellowship, because I remember them. He was the thing they show in the behind the scenes is Peter Jackson figuring out we're going to put the camera when Legolas jumps on top of the cave troll and starts putting arrows into its skull. Right.
Yeah. Whereas I'm remembering the bit where they were planning out how to film Smaug, or however you pronounce his name, when in the Desolation of Smaug film, they had the camera with the tracking points on it, and they were running around filming Smaug emerging from the cave.
Right. Yeah, which also Lord of the Rings had a lot of advances in technology that they had done, along with Planet of the Apes and things like that, where they had motion capture stuff happening.
It was like the second thing where they used motion capture. Andy Serkis as a golem came out.
Yeah, and he has perfected that. I mean, he is the motion capture performer, So although I mean, you can bash on Jar Jar Binks all you want, but Ahmed Best really brought to life a character that had never been done in that way before.
Ahmed Best should not take the hit for Jar Jar.
Yeah, absolutely.
Much like Rosemary.
He did revolutionize. He was pioneering the art of motion capture.
Yeah, and he suffered on that set, man. 110 degrees, and he's wearing this suit.
Right.
Giant green microwave suit.
A problem with Jar Jar, it's not Ahmed's Best's fault that the dialogue for Jar Jar got written as it was. And then another subtle thing that happens in Phantom Menace that's not Ahmed Best's fault is they changed Jar Jar's head height after filming. And I think we've discussed this before, right? Where I go if I start searching up images for Jar Jar in Phantom Menace, and then you trace the eye lines, you'll find that everybody in Phantom Menace stares at Jar Jar's nostrils all the time, and it's very off-putting.
Yeah, and that's because they decided after the fact to move where his eyes were.
Yeah. So it's not Ahmed Best's fault that he got handed terrible dialogue or moving the eye. And I think the moving the eye line was actually more critical. I really think that the fact that everybody spends Phantom Menace staring Jar Jar in the booger makes him unlikable.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because everyone's like,
it sets them off on the character.
Yeah, and the motion capture and everything, the performance was fantastic. I mean, I saw someone did a fan edit where they replaced the dialogue with like a alien language, kind of like Chewbacca, so you couldn't understand what he was saying, and it made the character still work, like same action, same performance, but just removing the actual dialogue and putting gibberish or alien whatever, it made it better.
I also feel like it didn't help Jar Jar's character that he was presented as being quite so stupid. Because he's kind of very much I'm your humble servant in all of this, when they're still being attacked. I mean, isn't it like main instincts for if people are trying to shoot you, you kind of save your little conversation of like happiness until after you finished with the fight. And also like he's being kicked out of staying in, I forgot where it's called, the
Gungan City.
Yeah.
right.
And it's kind of like, I know he's meant to be the outcast, but like it would have been in a way better if he was more trying to pioneer something that's more kind of smart and clever, but all of the others are kind of more stupid ones, and then your main character kind of has a bit more I'm going to kind of go away from what everyone else is doing because I'm going to show that this is what I think and believe.
Jar Jar also needed a buddy because he's kind of hitting the comic relief role that 3PO and R2 were trying to do, but 3PO and R2 are a double act, and Jar Jar, he doesn't have a buddy to bounce off of, so he has to do his stupid shtick with our heroes when our heroes are doing heroic things. And
Yep, I agree. A second Jar Jar, that's what we need.
Yeah, Jar Jar 2.0.
It didn't have to be another gun. It could have been some different species that was on that planet, something that didn't.
Watto and Jar Jar animated series.
Watto and Jar Jar.
Okay, I'm down.
The new buddy comedy.
It could have been.
Somebody tell Kathleen Kennedy. She'll bite.
You know, they could have made R2 the sidekick for Jar Jar too, since he's the storyteller. He could have been the other.
Sure.
And he was there. I don't know.
Yeah, after the fall of the Republic, Watto and Jar Jar.
Watto and Jar Jar, the buddy comedy series.
Coming
soon.
For some reason, I think that would actually work.
Yeah, they're running a used spaceship dealership.
Yeah.
All right. I got one for you. Does anybody do any Star Wars impressions?
Ooh.
Mr. Jar Jar Binks.
Oh,
No, I'm not very good at impressions.
There you go. There it is.
Yeah.
There you go. Now that's a real one.
A different Darth Vader one is old joke back in the day when friends and I used to do fake radio ads. And now Darth Vader for Primatine Mist. Oh. Yeah.
I always used to pull out the "When did you think I was in trouble?" all the time. I would tell people, I would go with that, and people would go, "Oh."
How about this one? No. The question is which no is it?
That's pretty good.
I think that's the 1999 special edition falling off the platform in Bespin, though.
There you go.
Not a 2010 Darth Vader. No.
Not an Obi-Wan when Qui-Gon dies. No.
What is the best line in Star Wars?
No.
So which one?
The line that Qui-Gon Jinn has to just Jar Jar, which is just because you have the ability to speak does not make you intelligent.
I don't care what universe you're from. That's
gotta hurt. Proof that there's multi-universes in Star Wars.
And that announcer is clearly Plagueis.
Yep. That's right. Who knew? Actually, I posted that.
Yeah.
I tweeted that out one time. I tweeted out what's his name who plays Greg Proops. I said, who knew Greg Proops was a multi-dimensional traveling being? Yeah. And I put that on there, and Greg Proops went, "Hey, I like that."
It's a bit of an inside joke.
Yeah. I don't care what universe you're from. That's gotta hurt.
In all seriousness.
No, I think the best line is when he refers to Alderaan as the wretched hive of scum and villainy.
You mean Mos Eisley?
Oh, Mos Eisley. Yeah, that is a wretched hive of scum and villainy. That's my favorite.
No fair booting Neil from the stream just because he disagreed with you or challenged.
What do you guys think?
Best line, Han Solo to Leia when he says, "I know."
Oh, one's a good one.
I'll just like
or when Leia says, "I know" back.
Yeah.
Which is the perfect payoff in a whole other movie.
You guys just took mine.
Yeah,
I was gonna go with I know. I think that's it.
Yeah.
I know.
A more elegant weapon, or an elegant weapon from a more civilized age.
Here you go. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
This
How
is
about,
the way.
aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper? That's a good one.
Or I have spoken.
I have spoken.
Or,
That one I use, and my wife all the time doesn't work, but I use it.
I'm gonna mess it up, but where he says, "We're all fine here now. How are you?"
Oh yeah, where he's improvising it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Oh, everything's fine. Everything's fine. No, radiation leak, very dangerous. That whole scene, yeah.
Yeah. The whole speech.
He's just improvising. He's faking it.
See, and that kind of that sincerity, or whatever you want to call it, with the acting there, you don't see in any of the other new films. Like, it just seems so like they believe the characters they're playing. All the new films, it kind of feels like they're all forced, if that makes sense, in the way that they act.
Mm-hmm. And it's not that they're bad actors.
No.
It's because I think that they are very good actors.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just catch lightning in a bottle, and George Lucas caught lightning in a bottle with the original Star Wars.
There's got to be a bunch of pressure on the new films, because the first film, it was just, I sold this movie, and I get to make this movie, and all the actors got cast, and they didn't know what they didn't know what they were in, they didn't know what it was going to be. Various actors had better times than others. Right, Alec Guinness reported, likes to say, this goes back to what Bill said earlier about having the plot line sketched out beforehand, except, at least according to Alec Guinness, Obi-Wan dies because Alec Guinness said, please kill me off. You can write this dialogue, but you can't speak it. Right. Yeah. But, anybody going into trying to make a Star Wars project now kind of has to live up to that. And, I mean, even with the actors, right, when you're... Harrison Ford could probably relax and have fun during that scene because, I'm Harrison Ford and I was a construction worker 3 months ago, and now I'm in England wearing silly plastic armor that, doesn't fit because we've only got like 4 stormtrooper suits for the entire thing, and they just keep getting passed around. Right. And I'm doing this weird, silly movie, and then by the time you get to the prequels, you've got, and of course, George is famously not an actor-director. He's very good at the visuals and the camera work, but, Harrison Ford would always say, faster, more intense, and that's all I ever got from George Lucas. And, Natalie Portman talking about how she never really got any character notes from Lucas. So I think, I think in that first movie, they're having more fun in that first movie because it's just this movie, and then they've bonded and they get to have fun through the next 2 movies, and then everybody else has the pressure going into it. Oh my God, I'm in a Star Wars movie. I gotta bring it.
Yeah, I think that really comes across because they're just so genuine in those original ones. They're more believable than when you see the prequels and sequels. That all seems kind of forced, or it's just, I don't know, it's something different. And that's just, like you said before, the acting's not bad. They're good actors. You've seen them in other films, they're fine. But in the Star Wars films, the way they act in the original, it's like they're really real.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Of course, also in the original, we're talking the 70s, so everything's still physical sets and physical costumes. And, even the Falcon was a half-size mock-up of half the Falcon, and then the rest is a matte painting. And the prequels... is pretty much all green screen, and even the sequels is mostly green screen. It is harder to visualize that. Mm-hmm. Say again, Nathan?
Sequels are more kind of a cross between the green screen and the practical set, whereas the prequels were kind of all green screen because, once again, it feels a bit like George Lucas was like, we no longer need sets, let's just completely do everything with green screen and CG and overdo it a bit.
But that happened right in the late 90s and early 2000s. You had that spate right in Sky Captain, the first movie that was all green screen, and Sin City, brilliantly done but all green screen. And you get to we can use Ian McKellen on this one. In the Lord of the Rings movies, Ian was on set with the other actors for the most part, and there was a lot of false perspectives so that he could be on the same set with Elijah Wood, and they would have to keep their eye lines in, but they were on set interacting with each other. And by the time I got to The Hobbit, it was Peter Jackson was doing all of his stuff in New Zealand, and Ian McKellen with a second unit on a green screen in England. And Ian famously said, "This is not what I got into acting for." And I think you can extrapolate that to some of the other Star Wars actors, particularly in the prequels, where it's just everything is all green screen all the time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and
The Lord of the Rings, they still used the set with either one of the actors being on a green screen. Because I know with Elijah Wood, they had to scale down the camera movements or scale up the camera movements to make the
Motion
scale
control,
feel-
right?
Yeah.
Right.
Where they had it on the same. I've seen the behind the scenes so many times for that.
Hmm.
It's kind of like ingrained in my memory. So I know that there is a difference between it being done effectively because it needed to be done, and then it being done just because they can do it. So with the prequels of Star Wars, there's quite a lot of, well, we don't need to have like this really massive alien with multiple legs when we could have just had something in a costume or like something like that. Whereas with the sequels, there are some things that still felt Star Wars-y because quite a few of the characters and aliens were people in costume, so it felt like the originals, rather than it just being, oh yeah, we can now create these aliens that haven't ever been seen before, that don't look anything like any of the ones that have been seen before, just because we can now render out CG characters that don't need to obey any form of laws of actual physics that an alien like that would. I don't know if that made any sense. But...
Sure, no.
It did.
Yeah.
And, there's also what they're telling the actor to react to on set might get changed in post. And, I mean, not just changing, Jar Jar's height. How about we go to the, think about Avengers, the time suits that they wore. Those things weren't designed until halfway. Nobody knew what those suits were going to look like on set. You can't react properly to something when you don't know what it is. Chris, when you did extra work on Mortal Kombat, did you have any of those weird scenes where you're direct? Oh,
No.
sorry, did I spill something I'm not supposed to say?
Nah.
No, because I was seriously, I was going to ask, were you in any scenes where the directors had to have you react to things that were going to be added in post? I was just curious if you got to do any of those scenes.
No. All of the stuff I did was like practical.
Okay.
I didn't know you worked on Mortal Kombat. That's pretty cool.
Just an extra, nothing too special. One of a few in the background, so yeah.
Just like the new ones.
The new ones are currently filming in Australia. They filmed it in my hometown, Adelaide. So yeah, which is very rare. But apparently we'll be getting more films now, so it's paved the way for a lot to come here, which is good.
Yeah,
That is exciting.
that's cool.
How cool is that?
And Mortal Kombat, that's It would
You
have
got
been
the
great.
shirt on.
Yeah, I do actually. It would be great to have had a real part. But yeah, oh well.
That's cool.
I've just realized. Wait, Jay, what's your T-shirt? Okay, he's got a. Okay, it's Finn. I was going to say at least Jay's and Neil were wearing Star Wars T-shirts.
Yeah,
I couldn't find a Star Wars. I had a Chewbacca shirt somewhere, but I don't know.
I could just take my shirt off and it would be a Chewbacca
I do have
shirt.
this. I did bring this to do on my table here. But
I've got this.
You got the
I
phaser.
got all the stuff in the background, as you can see. I got my Lego Republic gunship, Lego Falcon mask, lightsaber. I got all of my guns here, and then my poster that's always up there.
I can't actually. I can't actually see Neil's feed. That's weird.
Oh, you can't? Can you see?
No. Earlier, right? So earlier, I made a joke about kicking him from the stream when he disagreed with you, and since I made that joke, all I see for Neil is this rotating circle. That's weird.
Oh, no kidding.
That
Oh,
is
no.
weird.
I didn't kick him from the stream.
Oh well.
I thought
Okay.
you were saying I was going to kick him because he
No.
didn't.
I thought he did.
How
So-
interesting.
I
That's
can
weird.
still see you. Yeah, you're still on my
I can
camera.
still see.
No, I can see Neil when I flip over to the actual YouTube feed. I just can't see him in StreamYard.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Since we're on T-shirts, I wore this one for Chris.
Wait, let me.
Nice.
Ninja Turtles.
Nice.
Now we're talking.
Yeah.
Everything right with all the text in there, so you can.
Oh, that's great.
Oh. That is
That's really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is cool, man.
cool.
Well, I'm wearing my Boba Fett pajama pants.
Hmm.
I got some of those too. I'm not wearing them now, but I have
See?
some.
There's my Boba Fett pajama pants on.
Nice. Checks to see am I wearing the Star Trek or Star Wars boxers? Nope, Ghostbusters.
Forget
I'm
it.
not showing those on camera.
Don't show those on camera.
I'm not.
This is a family-friendly show, so you know.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
gonna keep our clothes on.
I got all this dressed up my room for this occasion.
Yeah, had to actually clean the room.
Yeah. I got also a bunch of other Lego Star Wars stuff right off camera here. So like
Let's see it.
oh, I got the battle on Naboo.
All right, I'm gonna leave the studio and then try and come back and see if I can see Neil's camera because I don't want to miss out on the Lego Star Wars stuff. I'll be right back.
Okay. I also got the Darth Vader changing scene. Some other stuff like Grievous's ship. Just cool stuff like that. I have one more back here. It's this one with Stormtrooper.
Stormtrooper.
And of course, I got the Lego Star Wars Republic gunship and such in the background.
Yep,
And,
the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, the Falcon, of course.
Right
Nice
there.
collection.
Mike, can you see him?
Yep.
You
There
can.
you go.
I was just showing them some of this stuff. You got that one.
Oh, cool.
The Vader changing scene. After things like this, I did a stop motion one, having him change. So that's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
All right.
So now,
All right.
Mike has got something going on over there.
Yeah, I do have a couple of things going on. So, way back in the day, and I assume that there was some sort of kit for this. But in 1977, after Star Wars came out, the woman who is my mom's boss made this.
Check that out.
And I assume I don't know if this was a kit or anything because there's no copyright notice on it. So Barbara may have just done this herself, and right, she put her mark on the bottom.
It certainly looks handmade.
That is cool.
Yeah, and so we've got Chewie, he's had pens in him for years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
listen. I handmade mugs like that too.
And
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
Now
yeah, cool.
that's not handmade.
no, no, this I don't know because it's still painted, right? There's no.
I think it was hand painted. But
She's got. I don't know if you can see it. She's got the same maker's mark at the bottom.
Wow. Interesting.
So yeah, these may be handmade, and she made a third piece, which I'm gonna go find, but it's on a different floor because I gotta go get it out of the bedroom. But no, I mean I really do. I have to go get it out of the bedroom because that's where it's been.
All right.
I've got a I can't show you because there's another room and too hard to take my camera, but I got a life I put together this year a mannequin dressed as Kylo Ren. Always wanted a stormtrooper, but the Kylo Ren was cheaper to put together, and it's literally freaked everyone out every time they come over because it's in my TV room just as you walk around the wall, and no one is expecting to see this Kylo Ren standing there like this.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Cool.
That's great.
You can't see it. It's not in the background there, but I have this lightsaber. I took this class, which was applied engineering. It was a cool class, but during it, you were allowed to 3D print stuff if you wanted to, and I built this lightsaber model.
Yeah, go get it.
You printed. Okay, I'll go grab that real quick. Here we go. Here it is. Green was the only one that we had enough filament for. but it's got. I even did the design on that.
So
Then I
you
got
designed that and then 3D printed it.
Yeah, this is
Nice.
designed all by me.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and I 3D printed it out. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You missed.
You missed.
Think I just got to see your 3D. That's your design?
Yeah, I designed this out and then 3D printed it. It's got like all that. It's pretty cool. A piece of it broke off, but that's all right. I thought that was pretty cool.
Battle damage.
Battle damage. That's right.
Yeah.
Did you get it, Mike?
Oh.
Ooh.
Nice.
That's cool.
R2 here, still from my mom's Boss Barber, still same maker's mark. R2 here, he's a couple of his plastic beads have fallen off, but he's a lamp. So there's a light assembly that fits up here in the bottom. So
I
you
see.
put the light bulb in and turn it on, and he
lights up. Yeah.
he lights up from the inside. And I mean, this is
That's pretty
beautiful.
sweet.
That is cool.
Well, and Terry says this. Oh,
And it's got a door for Kenny Baker to get in.
oh, there you go. Well, Terry says this. I think this is true. Those ceramic mugs back in the day were sold unglazed. You had to paint them first and then glaze them yourself and then fire them in a kiln. And I did that when I was a kid with some different things. So
I remember something like that. There used to be a pottery store that my mum would go to, and it was all unglazed. You'd buy them, take them home, paint them, then take them back to the store, and they would bake them for you.
right.
Okay.
yeah.
That's exactly.
Did they sell
what-
these guys
I
too?
reckon. No, they had other stuff at that time, but yeah, they probably would have.
I've done one of those things with a Lego guy mug.
Right.
I do know that Barbara had done ceramics because I saw other stuff she made. Right, she made other mugs and things. She did do ceramics, so I don't know. It's possible that these guys were the same kit ones, but
And if I recall, you would have to they would come like uncleaned, and they'd have lines, and you had to scrape it down and then sand it and smooth it all out before you'd paint it as well. So they'd come out kind of rough.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like the old day 3D printing, I guess. They'd come out of the mold with the line seals. And,
Hand printing.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you buy those down at like a craft store.
yeah,
And then
that's right.
you could, you'd take them home and you'd glaze them and paint them and whatever, because I did it. I did it with several things as a kid with my mom and with my mom's friends, and then we would, then she would take them away to get them fired in a kiln. So that was a long time ago.
Same thing when I was a kid. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been a long time. So
Kids nowadays would look at that and go, "What?"
yeah, why would you do that? Exactly. Oh, the joys of being a kid in the 70s and 80s. I forgot I'd even ever done that, to be honest with you. So there you go.
Same until Mike brought that cup up. It was like flashback.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I did a duck one time. It was a ceramic duck that I painted and then I gave to my mom for Mother's Day or something. So, all right, what do you think? It's been almost 2 hours. Let's do this. Why don't we go around with some last words about Star Wars? Anything that you want to say, any comment, and then we'll wrap it up. So we'll start with Neil.
Okay. It's been a great time talking about Star Wars with you guys. It's been interesting hearing some of your opinions on the different movies. And it's been lots of fun. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. Chris?
Yeah, thanks, Jay, for having me. It's been good conversation. My first podcast as well, so that was a bit of an experience. And all I want to say is the Force will be with you always.
Always. Hey, it's fun being on a live stream, isn't it? It's easier than you'd think it is.
Yeah.
It's actually more fun than you'd think it would be, too.
Definitely.
The software that I use is so simple that, it makes it's a breeze to be able to do this quickly and easily. So,
Yeah.
Mike?
And since Chris has multiple channels, you've got What Chef and Solo Samurai, so you'll have to come back on do another stream with Jay and discuss how you use HitFilm to make your stuff.
Yeah, that'd be great. We'd love to do that.
Yeah, no, always a fun time on these streams, and I hope I'll let other people get their words in edgewise. If we go to my screen, this is only tangentially Star Wars related, but of course.
Wait, you got to reshare your screen because when you left it, it went out.
Oh, do I?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then I can
right.
before I actually click the share screen button, I can do my lead in. So of course we've all seen Rise of the Dark Side because we watched it earlier in this stream, and of course they were doing their tutorials on making the entire screen on making the digital double. So yesterday is when I shot a series of photos and tried my first attempt at digital doubling in Meshroom, and it's very scary.
Oh, I can't wait. Are you ready?
Oh, yeah.
Here we go. Oh, my. You look like a zombie.
Yeah, I wanna keep this one and just, retexture that and, grab like some arm bones and stick them in there and actually do something with this weird janky model. It's interesting how my legs came out okay. I learned a lot from the process. I have no idea why there seems to be a leaf stuck to me. There, I just noticed that.
Definitely got zombie vibe happening there.
And also, what are the drips coming off of your arms, or are they like?
Those are holding your arms up.
Yeah, the drips coming out. So, have you seen I guess I'll go back to the screen. Have you seen the tutorial series that the Hit Film channel did? So, right, you talked about bracing up on the light stands or the C stands, and those are part of the. We have a house guest staying with us, and while we were out of town in Ireland and England, she moved a couple things, which is fine, but I didn't know where they were, so I couldn't find my light stands. Those are monopods that my wrists are resting on so that my arms don't move. And I think part of what's going on with my arms and then my head is we got halfway through the shoot and I hadn't explained what we were doing quite well enough to it's the same friend who was staying here who also did the photos. So I ended up talking halfway through the shoot, and I'm going to guess that that's part of, I think my arms moved. And I think that's why my arms are janky. And then I think, I know my head moved because I talked, and I think that's part of the head geometry. Also, the wind picked up when she was during the third range of shots, and the hair on the left side of my head started blowing around.
Oh, yep.
And I think that's what caused a lot of that. But boy, I just want to.
You got to animate that to like the Thriller dance.
Which you can do. Just throw it into Mixamo and let it and do it.
Get those things hanging down to be like torn fabric moving as well.
You know what? Mixamo, when I tried to put it into Mixamo didn't see it. But when I exported for Mixamo, I gave it an FBX. Let's see what happens if I give Mixamo an OBJ.
Yeah, it depends. While you're doing that, let me...
yeah, why not?
I have a couple of comments here. Let me see. First of all, Terry says, Mike, Google Star Wars ceramic mugs and look at the images and see if they are the same ones that you have.
I will, Terry, who's been here long enough where he should have just been on the show.
He probably had to deal with the kids too. I understand that. Courtney has another quote for us. Never tell me the odds.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's a good one.
How about well, I guess I'm going nowhere.
You're good at that one, Neil. Jeez.
Neil, if you and your dad, you guys need to track down, Jay, if you don't have this or if you haven't heard it already, you need to track down the original Star Wars radio series. You can get it on Amazon, all on CD. It's, I think, you put the entire thing together. I think Star Wars was like 12 episodes and Empire was like 9 and Jedi was like 7. So it's this huge expanded storyline. They got Mark Hamill to come back, but a lot of the other actors are different. But I think you would really enjoy the heck out of that radio series.
Yeah,
I think
we will have to. We'll have to check it out.
John Lithgow is Yoda.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. All right, so Dafter Things has a question for Neil. Okay. Do you post your stop motions or can you share it with him? Would be great to see.
The problem with that one is Dad, you remember this one. My phone broke down I got the new phone and I moved the SIM card over, but for some reason it was in the app, but now it doesn't have any of the stuff I did.
Yeah.
I didn't post it anywhere.
And we never bothered to back it up out of your phone.
Yeah, we never did that, so I don't believe I have it anymore. But I'm working on some new ones, so and planning on getting a YouTube channel for that. So
yeah, Tony, we'll share them with you for sure.
Yeah, we'll give you a look at those.
Terry says he has been up and down herding cats all day. So, and I believe it.
Ooh, Ivan asked an interesting question.
Okay.
It's right below my response to Terry's. Two down.
Star Wars a religious film? Is that one you're asking?
Yeah, I think that's actually
Star
interesting.
Wars a religious film. Well, there's the old story about how George Lucas was having the conversation with what's his name? Famous filmmaker, I'm blanking his name. Godfather.
Coppola?
Francis Ford Coppola. And Coppola said, you should make, the Force into a religion because you'll make a lot more money doing that than you'll ever do making films, right?
Yeah.
So, that's a good question. How much of a religious sort of allegory is happening?
It is more of a film about a kid who gets convinced to be a radical terrorist, blow up a giant base. So, I mean...
There you go.
And if you've ever watched Clerks, the discussion of all the hired labor that they kill when they blow up the Death Star.
Yeah.
Most of them probably just contractors,
right?
On some exhaust port that had nothing to do with anything,
Yeah,
some little guy.
Well, somebody had to be building. As it turns out, it was the Geonosians, right?
Yeah,
I always kind of thought that that Star Wars was kind of a fairy tale on the sequel trilogies really supported this on the death of magic. That and some of that came from the prophecy of the balance in the Force, and at the end of Episode 3, if we go with just the movies and ignore everything else out there, then we have our balance because we have one Jedi and we have one Sith.
Yeah.
And then the cycle starts again when more Sith rise and more Jedi rise, and then the cycle starts again with The Force Awakens. So I always figured that this would be a conflict that would continue on forever until the genetics that allow you to be a Force user are wiped out of the galaxy. And that's why there's no magic anymore.
Well, that's an interesting thought.
That is an interesting theory.
Mike, are you still with us? I think Mike fell off our...
Yeah.
He looks deep in thought, though.
Yeah, he does.
Every time his camera freezes, he's got
Mike's thinking.
What I see, I have a little thumbnail of his screen, and it went black when he clicked on something that he was working on there. Well, he was running Mixamo. I could see him doing it while we were talking there. So there you go. Tony says Jedi might still be an official religion in the UK after people kept putting it on the other for the national census, and that happened here in the United States as well.
Same here in Australia. They did the same.
Wow.
Yeah, we learned about it at school. We were looking at different religions, and we had a lesson on Jediism, because there was this person who went into Tesco with a. If you don't know what Tesco is, I don't know if you have that in the US. It's just basically a big shop, and they went in wearing like a Jedi robe, and someone in Tesco was like, "Could we put that down? Because no one can actually see who you are for like the security cameras and things."
Mm-hmm.
And then they were like, "Well, I can't because it's against my religion." And then they were like that they were a Jedi. So we learned about that.
That's hysterical. So as you can see, Mike has crashed.
Yeah, Mike is crashed.
We knew that. We figured that out.
Well, I'm about to crash. I need more coffee.
That's it. I believe it. Well, let me let Nathan talk his final words. Nathan, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me on the shirt. Let me restart. Thank you for having me on the stream. It was a lot of fun. Talking about Star Wars was good fun because I really enjoy Star Wars, and hearing all of your opinions was also great. So yeah, thank you.
I think that's the neat thing about Star Wars. Oh, Mike is back. I think that is the neat thing about Star Wars. Welcome back, Mike.
It's alive.
Just in time to say bye.
Yep, just in time. You clicked on something on your screen, and your screen went black, and you froze. And I thought, well, he's out of here.
My computer's been crashing a lot for the last couple days, so I don't know what's going on there.
It's you. It's you, Zero.
Yeah, it must be me. I'm sure.
Let's guarantee it. All right.
By the way, Mixamo, no, still not able to see the OBJ on that one.
Not interesting. You probably have to take it in a blender, clean it up, a little bit, and then try it again. Maybe, flip the normals, not flip them, but normalize the normals, get them all pointing in the right direction. You probably want to do a few, make sure there's no points that are on top of each other.
Well, it's also it's a photogrammetry thing, so it's a point cloud that's been meshed up, and it's ugly geometry. What would probably help a lot is if I actually rigged it in Blender, and then Mixamo would just grab the existing skeleton and be like, "Oh, there's a skeleton." Right,
and if you just did a little bit of cleanup work on it in Blender, it wouldn't be hard. You probably would get it to get it.
Well, the next overcast day, we'll try taking another data set.
Yeah.
Anyway, good times.
Yeah.
Fun, yes, Chris, everybody. More coffee.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I want to thank all of you for being here today. You guys are awesome. I appreciate you spending your time with us over 2 hours. And I want to thank everybody who has watched the stream. You guys have hung with us for a long time. It is delightful that you're here. I do want to remind you that next week I want to try an experiment. And the experiment is the Project Challenge experiment, right? Where I get a couple of people or maybe 3 and challenge you to create something in HitFilm on live broadcast, right? While we're live streaming.
I might just have to volunteer for that.
I would like to volunteer, but
well, I would have both of you if you would like to volunteer. That would just be awesome. I think it would be a fun
I see Chris hiding behind his microphone.
Chris could do it too. Neil?
Yeah.
No.
Get talk to Greg, talk to Jamie at Film Empire.
Yep.
Ask Javert.
That's what I was thinking. Maybe somebody from HitFilm would want to jump in and play. It would be something simple. It wouldn't be hard. I could talk.
I'm not in that category.
Yeah, wouldn't be something hard. It'd be but it would. You'd have to think about it a little bit.
Maybe even Axel.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to have Axel come on my show. That would be the cats, man. That'd be awesome. So, but anybody who else out there who wants to volunteer, well, we would love to have you. So, get in touch with me and let me know you'd be interested in doing something like that, and we'd love to do it. Thanks, everybody, and we will look forward to seeing you guys next time. See ya.
Bye.